Today I'm going to look at the new Campark 1080 model DC02 Dual Lens Dashcam. We're going to put it through its paces and compare it on various lighting conditions and compare it to my vantrue. I picked up this new 1080p full HD dash camera off of Amazon, and today we're going to take this one and give this one a test and see how it compares to some of the other ones that I've got. So this was not a gift. I actually purchased this from Amazon, so I'll be able to actually give it a review on Amazon, and we'll see how well this one works. This is a dual camera system, so it comes with a rear camera for recording out the back of the car. So you have full 1080p out the front window and a 720p out the back window, which I think is kind of important these days because yes, if someone rear ends you, it's generally their fault, but it's nice to have it on video so you can see what led up to that. So that's why I picked this camera up here, and we'll try it out and see how this performs and whether it's going to be good enough to become my main dash cam, because I'm kind of a dash cam nut. I'm always trying out new dash cams. I've had about a dozen other things over the last couple of years. A few of them have been good, some of them have been so I usually either send back or get rid of the ones that I'm not a big fan of. We'll take this one out and give you guys an unbiased review. So this is the official opening of the box. Let's take a look at what contents is in the box. Comes with lots of gadgets, including double-sided sticky tape to conceal the wires and various brackets to mount the camera with, and of course the operating instructions. We'll hook it up on the bench first and test it out. First we'll open the camera, take a look at the main camera, and here it is. It says 1080 full high definition plus 720 HD. And it's just got your basic USB port. It's got an input on the top here for the rear camera, and your basic buttons to control it, power button and your OK button, M button, lock button, and your standard up and down and select buttons for going through the menus. So first we'll power the camera up, and we will take a look at it. To say, this looks to be, well, this is the rear camera. Comes with double-sided tape and so forth. There's the bracket. So this would normally, you know, if you were mounting this in your car, this would be to, if you were going to use this as a reversing camera. And in case anybody's wondering, a quick way to hook up a cigarette type plug to a power supply when you want to use alligator clips, just take some solder or something and wrap it around the negative terminal. And that way you can hook it up to your power supply and not have the lead jumping off every time you move. So this will give me my 12 volt supply to power up my camera. As you can see, this one has a choke at the end of the cable, which could be good for removing noise that may be induced into the vehicle power, or vice versa, vehicle noise from the alternator into the camera. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to test the camera and see what size of memory card it will support. Bigger is always better, but not all cameras support over 32 gigabyte memory card. So let's try a 64. We'll insert a 64 gig memory card into the camera, and we'll apply power, and we'll see whether the camera will actually recognize the 64 gig memory card. Got power, got some lights here. Camera boots up. Need no formatted SD card, please format. Okay, so we're going to press the OK button. I think that was it. And it looks like the memory card is now formatted. Let's go through some of the menus here and set the resolution up. So we're set currently to 1080. Loop recording. This is where you can select Buttons are over here. So down and OK. This is where you can set it to off, 1 minute, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes. Those are the options. Off will just continue to record until the memory card is full and then stop. In these modes, it will record a 5-minute loop or 5-minute segment and then move to the next file. I generally use 5 minutes. WDR would be wide dynamic range, so we'll make sure that it is on. Then exposure compensation, motion detection, audio recording. You can turn your audio recording on or off. We'll leave it on for this test. Date stamp, this is where you can have the date and time on or off. I prefer to keep the date and time stamp off. That's just my own personal preference. G sensor, this is for setting the sensitivity for impacts and so forth. Parking monitor puts the camera to sleep when it's off, but keeps the motion detector on, so if someone bumps your car, it will record. We're not going to be using that in this particular test. Get to the next menu, date, time. This is where you can set the date and the time. So it's 2019, we'll set the time, it's September the 19th now. So it's September 19th. Whoops. And the time is 4:34 in the PM, and it's all based on 24-hour clock. So 16:34, hey, that's correct. The next one down is auto power off. That's how long the camera will run after you turn off the power. 1 minute is probably good enough. The beep sound, well, that's what we're hearing here. Language, light frequency. We want to make sure that it's on 60 hertz, otherwise the lights could flicker. For lights that are running with a magnetic ballast, that is. And screensaver. We'll turn that off because I like my screen to run. In some jurisdictions, you actually have to run your screensaver, because if your camera is displaying a picture in the car and a cop comes up behind you and he sees your camera displaying a picture, sometimes they like to write you a ticket for that. They're saying that you're watching TV because if the screen is visible from the driver. Just keep that in mind. Plate number stamp. Well, it's off. We're going to leave it there. And format. This is to format the memory card. So we'll format the memory card. Okay, memory card is formatted. And if I get out of there. Now this says it's going to record for 3 hours and 19 minutes and 59 seconds, which doesn't seem to be a lot for a 64 gig memory card. I would expect it to be like a lot longer than that. So this must be recording at quite a high bit rate. But we'll find out when we put this into operation. So let's plug the second camera in, which plugs into the top, and we'll do some record. Oh, cool! There it is. So I was fearful that it was only going to operate as a backup camera, but it actually does look like it is going to record, and that would certainly explain why the recording time is as low as it is. So I'm happy already. So now it's recording. You can see that the red dot is flashing, and it's counting. The counter is counting here on the screen. If I stop it by pressing the, I think it was the, which button was it? It was this one here, I think. One of these buttons stopped it. That one there. Okay, the top button, OK button, starts and stops. So it's got 3 hours and 16 minutes of recording both cameras. So now we're recording, and I can look around here. Which way does this camera face? That looks like it goes this direction. Okay, so there's my recording. And as you can see, I'm recording my bench for both cameras. And I'm just going to record a little bit in here. Oh, look, this is something I found. Get this on the other camera. It's a reversed image. It's a mirror image of the image. But here it is. You'll see. You guys will see this on a video coming up. I found this at a garage sale, and it's an old Sony Digimatic, and we'll be doing a restoration on this one. It's an old flip, like a real flip, mechanical flip clock. Where is it? Cool, huh? I haven't seen these around in years. Yeah, there are some retro new ones out now, but that's a real authentic one. So this recording is now, as I say, I'm doing some recording here with the camera. I'm going to take this, I'm going to mount it in the car, and we'll set this thing up, and we're going to do some driving and see what the picture quality looks like through the front and rear cameras. And it doesn't look proper right now. I should remove the protector. So the images that I just shot on my bench here are going to be all foggy because I didn't have the cover off. I'm just curious as to what this red lead does on the power lead here. I have a feeling that this is going to, if I put 12 volts to this, it's going to turn these LEDs on. Let's just grab my power lead here and try not to disconnect the power while I'm at it. And we'll apply 12 volts and see whether, so that's what that does. If you've got this mounted to your license plate at the back of your car, which is where it's designed to go, this is designed to go outside. If you've got this mounted on the back of your car, on your license plate, and you've got the red wire connected to your reverse lights, like your backup lights, when you shift into reverse, it will turn on those white LEDs so that you can see behind you. That's what that does. I don't think it does anything else on the screen here, or did it change it to full screen? Let's just see this again. I think it just, oh, cool. So here's another feature that I just discovered on this. If you've got this mounted in behind your car, and you've got the red lead connected to your reverse backup lights, which I won't be doing because, again, on my car, I've got a factory reversing camera. But if you have this connected to your backup lights when you shift your car into reverse, in addition to turning on the lights so you can see where you're going, it now displays a grid, and it displays the reversing camera in full screen. I'm liking this. When I shift into forward and the tail lights or the reversing lights go out, it switches back to a regular front and rear facing dash cam. So now I'm going to go and install this thing in my car, and I'm just going to set it up temporarily for now. It's raining today, so I'm not going to be crawling around outside my car and mounting this thing. I don't think I'll be mounting the camera outside anyway. I'll mount this in the back window just to look out the back window, because I'm not going to be using this as a reversing camera. I'm only going to be using it as a dash cam. So I'm going to go put this in the car, and we'll pick this up and actually do some filming with it. Today it's raining, so I'll be doing this video over a couple of days. I'll get some shots today, and I'll get some shots tonight and in the dark, and then we'll get some shots when the weather's a little better before I put the video up. But this is what we're doing for now. So let me go mount this in the car. I don't think I need to show you guys how to mount a dash cam. They're pretty simple. You stick the suction cup up, you stick the camera on it, and you plug it in to the cigarette lighter or 12 volt power point, and you're good to go. So here's the camera. I've got it mounted. I haven't done anything with my power cable yet because I'm evaluating this to see if this is going to be my permanent camera. It's sitting beside my vantrue, so that's what we're going to compare it to, is the vantrue. And then it uses the same type of connector, so if it becomes my permanent camera, then I'll just be powering it up with the power cord that I've already routed for this. But for now, we're just going to leave this. I've routed the back camera up over the dash and down and tucked it in behind here. Now, this car has airbags. You got to be very careful with cars with airbags. You can't put any wires or anything that could interfere with the deployment of an airbag. So you don't want to have stuff like this hanging down, because if this is hanging down and the airbag goes off and you got a passenger there, they're going to end up with this thing blowing at them at about 200 miles an hour. So I've just kind of tucked this wire down here for now. I've taken it down past the weather stripping, all the way down under here, put it underneath the car here, away from the airbags. Again, completely hidden. It goes under here. Actually, I see a little bit of it there, but whoop-de-doo, I can tuck that in a little bit later. But anyway, Goes under my seat, around my seat, up the back, and I've got it coming out just here because I've mounted the camera, well, in the hatch. Because I don't want the camera outside the car, I want it, this is a temporary basically install. It's stuck with some VHB 3M tape, so it's not going to go anywhere. Looking out the back window, maybe not the best shot because when the window is wet, it will probably distort the picture a bit, but then hey, if it was outside and the lens got wet, it's going to distort the picture anyway. So either way, if it's raining, you're going to distort the picture a little bit. But I wanted to make it as unobtrusive as possible. Ran the wire again under the weather stripping, and then it's going to have to go into the car, so it just goes into the car there and in behind the seat. The power wire for the backup camera portion of it that turns on the lights and brings the backup camera full screen, I'm just going to tuck it in under the weather stripping so it's out of the way. Where the hatch is closed, that's all that shows in the back of the car. So yeah, you can see the bit of tape that's holding it on, but the camera itself is fairly unobtrusive. The camera comes with 3 clips to clip the wire down. I've just used one stuck to the back window. This is to hold the wire up out of the way so it doesn't interfere with the rear passenger's headroom. So let's close the hatch and see how it looks. As you can see, it holds the wire out of the way. So now I'm off to do my first driving test in the rain. We'll do another one once it gets dark, and hopefully tomorrow the weather will clear a bit and I can do one in the good weather. There's the two setup. There's the 2 camera setup as I start this recording. The rain is kind of let up now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a visit to the gas station and just use a squeegee on the back window to clear it off a bit so that I can get the best image possible for the weather conditions. So right now we're looking at the Campark DC02 from the front camera facing out the front window, recording at 1080p resolution. Again, 18 megabits per second is the data rate, and the picture is actually quite clear. Now today is a very overcast day. I expect to see a completely different picture when I film tomorrow when it's a little clearer out. We're going to look at the same shot with my vantrue. So let's take a look at the same image shot with my vantrue. Again, both cameras shoot at 30 frames per second, 1080p. So the picture quality is quite similar. I think the vantrue might have a little bit more accurate color in this type of lighting condition, but again, the picture on both is actually quite good. We'll go back and look at the Campark again. And coming right up, I'm going to put the rear camera on. Now here's the rear facing camera. Note that the resolution is not as good because it is a 720p camera. It's also recorded at 8.3 megabits per second, but the most important thing I've noticed is it's a mirror image. So what you see here is like you would see if you're looking in your rear view mirror. Again, the back camera is really more for gathering evidence in the case that somebody rear-ends you. For example, if someone rear-ends you and then tried to claim that you were backing up and you hit them, or if you're in a parking lot, this is a good example, and you're backing out of a stall and you stop and someone hits you and they try to claim that you were moving when you hit them, having that extra shot out the back window can certainly provide evidence that you were not moving. And that has happened, not to me personally, but it happened to my wife a few years ago, where she was in a parking lot and she was backing out of a stall and she saw someone also backing out of a stall. She slammed on the brakes. The driver that was in their 90s kept on going and backed into her, and the insurance company put it 50-50 because they couldn't prove who was backing up and who was stopped. They were both in reverse when it happened, even though she stopped and got backed into by an old boy that probably shouldn't have even been driving because he was apparently 97 years old. And he made a claim, didn't damage her car, but damaged his own car. He made a claim, and my wife got dinged. So having a rear-facing camera in that situation would have proved beyond a reasonable doubt that she had stopped and the other driver continued to back up and hit her. And that's why I've put the dual camera in my car. So here's some nighttime recordings. This is recorded with the vantrue. Let's switch over to the Campark. So the sound that's being recorded in the camera now is only being recorded on the Campark. that's what it's called, because I have the sound turned off on my other camera. I don't normally record sound off of my dash cam. Something about not wanting to provide incriminating evidence. Quite often I'll be talking on my ham radio, for example, and I don't need the conversation recorded. In the unlikely event that I were to get into an accident and the footage were to be admitted as evidence, then I don't want any sound recorded, because any sound recorded could be used by the other side to try and make a claim that, oh, you're talking on a radio, you're having a conversation with a person in the car, you were distracted. So for that reason, I don't have the sound turned on, just so that if it ever came down to evidence, there wouldn't be any evidence of any distraction. While shooting this, I noticed some lens flare on the light, so I figured I'd pull over and clean the lens, and this is the result. The lens actually had a bit of a fog on it. And we'll look at this is now the vantrue camera. Of course, it certainly has a little more light sensitivity, but they both actually do not a bad job. And of course, the rear-facing camera, it is nowhere near as sensitive. But again, all you're really showing on the rear-facing camera is if someone plows into you. You want to show that you've been hit. So the image quality on the rear-facing camera, in my opinion, is not nearly as important as the front-facing camera, because if someone hits you, they're at fault. And unless you're backing up, if someone plows into you, it's their fault. The front-facing camera is a lot more important because it's showing what's happening in front of the car to prove that you were not at fault and it was somebody else that caused the collision. And once again, the Campark under no street lighting conditions, and the vantrue under the same situations. One last shot in the dark. Here's the vantrue, and one last look at the Campark. Now let's take a look at how these cameras perform in the day. So of course I did this in post. This is how it looks on the screen of the camera itself, although both do actually record in full image as I've shown before, but I'm just doing this for the simulation here as to how they look on the camera itself. On the SD card there are two subfolders, a 1 and a 2, and they have the same file name, like vid001.mov, vid002.mov, vid003.mov, and each subfolder has the same file name. One is the front camera, 2 is the back camera, so if you load both clips together, they both will play in sync with each other because they're recorded exactly the same. So they're exactly the same length, and they're exactly the same file name. So it's easy to find the reverse facing shot. If you found your front facing shot, it's easy to find the reverse. And naturally, if I turn the time display on, it would display on both the main and the sub camera. It would superimpose the time at the bottom of the screen. I just want to show both of them here just so you get an idea of how the camera handles extreme contrast and extreme light here, as it's a nice bright sunny day today. And of course this here is a shot from the vantrue just so you get an idea of the difference in the color quality under the same lighting conditions. Both cameras, or all cameras, are set for automatic exposure and automatic color. The Campark is set for high dynamic range, which is the only difference because the vantrue doesn't support high dynamic range. One last shot, we'll go around the corner here and head into the sun to see how the camera handles direct lighting, and we'll just take another quick peek at the vantrue and see how it handles the same scene. So there you have it, the Campark DC02 Full HD 1080p dash cam with the 720p rear facing camera. For the money, I think it's probably a pretty good little camera. Yes, it has some shortcomings. It's not as good as it could be in low light, but still acceptable. And you have to decide for yourself how much money you want to spend on it. But I think, for what it costs, this unit here is probably a good enough unit for the majority of people looking for an inexpensive dash cam. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you again in the next one. Bye for now.